We are Group 3, and we will be presenting a case on at Ford. Turnaround is job 1. I'm Catherine O'Keefe.
I'm Michael Cabrera.
And I'm Darren Crumbly.
A little background on Ford. Henry Ford Sr. was an engineer born and raised in Detroit. He founded Ford Motor in 1903 with his vision of simplicity and fast production on his idea of fast production on low-margin cars. Over the year, Ford continued to become more complex with continued global expansion and acquiring partial or full ownership of many satellite brands such as Jaguar, Aston Martin, Land Rover, and others. By the end of 2001, the company had lost nearly $5 billion and suffered from issues with poor employee morale, quality issues, sluggish sales, and increasing competition. The lack of communication in the corporate culture caused overinflated sales forecasts, and their dependency on high-margin vehicles like trucks and SUVs failed when gas prices began to rise and the economic recession began.
So from 2001 to 2006, William Clay Ford Jr. was the chairman and CEO. He took to try to get the company back on track. However, the result was that they were a bit short-sighted because he went about downsizing as well as introducing new products, but was ignoring the overall market. To the lack of transparency that had given way, bureaucratic leadership structure had developed at the company. There was a lack of unity and cohesion because every executive was managing their own region and division and brand independently, rather than looking out for the greater good of the company itself. So the result was an introspective outlook that kind of ignored the competitors or the true competitors of Ford. It was deemed necessary to bring an outside leader. Alan Mulally was brought into the company in 2006. He was able to bring out an outsider's perspective. This enabled him to identify as well as address the issues at Ford without being influenced by Ford insiders. Skill set and knowledge, because he was a veteran of the aircraft manufacturing industry for nearly 40 years. And value to bringing him on board was the fact that he had experience turning around a company, namely Boeing, to good standing. So there was a lot of hope that bringing him on was going to help, and it resulted in being a good decision.
So who really controlled Ford? Due to the siloed environment that had developed with the independent sectors and divisions, senior managers and executives were able to create fiefdoms over which they had total control, as well as the ability to impose their will upon the entire company. In effect, Ford was really being controlled by its managers and executives. In each silo, each manager ran it separately and was in control of their own sales and was worried just about their own area, which was not creating a unified company as Ford was created upon. So the blame was really brought upon the board of directors, the C-level executives, and senior managers because they weren't keeping Ford as a unified system. They really were competing against themselves.
Yes, these executives and managers resisted Bill Ford's efforts to reconstruct the company to operate as one company, and instead preferred to try and maintain their own turf. The corporate structure issues they faced were that there was a corrupted company culture. It caused redundancy, lack of creativity. It fueled the inability to keep up with the shifts of the nature of the market. The Ford Corporation had formed itself into these separate silos. The silos are notoriously resistant to teamwork and are resistant to change, referring to prevent easy access to information and create barriers to cooperation. Ford silos use different forms and processes for the same function. There was a lot of redundancy in the system. Ford silos also use different forms. They used. They all had their separate. They all had their separate chassis and parts for the same functions on the same cars. This is evidenced by the company. This made the company extremely complex, and numerous vehicles and platforms and countless configurations, with each region, division, and brand running independently. In addition, Ford developed a corporate culture in which people were hesitant to deliver bad news. They were all afraid, and there was no trust. Silos formed when employees developed more loyalty to the group than to the employer. As the silos solidified, members became more insular and distrustful of other employees and departments. Once trust disappears, it became increasingly difficult for the group to work together. This information silo went a long way towards developing to explaining why the sales forecasts were overly aggressive, and how it became the norm of the company to overproduce.
Once Mullally became CEO of Ford, he initiated his efforts for a turnaround. His initiatives were built on the themes of focus and simplification. His goal was to create one Ford by building one team with one plan and one goal in mind. He wanted to run a company who created products that were high in quality, efficiency, safety, and value. Mullally wanted to bring the company back to its core value of simplicity. To do this, he cut the platforms by more than half and reduced vehicle models down to just 45 in a matter of 4 years. He wanted to focus on the quality of the product rather than the quality of the product rather than the quantity that Ford provided. He also chose to reduce the number of global suppliers in order to create commonality between every product created. Another vision Ford was built on was the fast production of low-margin vehicles. So Mullally decided to take a step back from how dependent Ford became on trucks and SUVs, and instead he made the decision to launch a full family of Ford vehicles. In order to bring back the morale of the employees that began to slow over the years, Mullally began to foster a culture of transparency. He would hold weekly meetings that provided a space for employees to share the wins and losses in the division without shaming people for delivering bad news. This also created more communication between all levels of the executive hierarchy. These initiatives, along with many others, including but not limited to his outsider perspective and previous business experience with Boeing, really cultivated a successful turnaround. Though there clearly were many incredible improvements made to Ford's strategy, operations, leadership, and financials, we found some other improvements that could only further their success. Continuing to increase the communication, collaboration, and overall transparency is really important. By implementing an office networking tool to enable cross-divisional communication on a daily basis, rather than just once a week at a company meeting, would foster team building and create a more united company. Increased employee morale is another improvement Mullally could have focused on. He decided to reduce Ford's workforce by almost 50,000 people, which is in addition to the 50,000 jobs that were cut in the previous 2 turnarounds. By continuing to cut jobs, it's hard for employees to feel secure. This may be something to consider moving forward. The need to improve Ford's reputation from an employee standpoint. Restructuring Ford into a flatter organizational structure would also be beneficial. By removing layers with the organization, it would help break the silos, operate as a single company, and open up lines of communication and collaboration. This restructuring would go hand in hand with the initiatives Mullally worked on in his turnarounds. At large, a large part of why Mullally was so successful was because of his outsider perspective. An evaluation of the company board structure could also become valuable. By having a good balance of independent outside executives who could bring fresh eyes to the business, to business challenges and opportunities moving forward would be great for Ford. We would like to thank you for listening to our presentation, and we look forward to your feedback in the future.